Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. And despite it being a quiet news day for Celtic, don't forget it is Derby week. That's right, the Glasgow Derby at Celtic Park is this weekend. Sunday afternoon, Celtic can take one step closer to securing 4 in a row, which got me thinking, what is the best derby we've seen at Celtic Park over the past decade? Because there's been some huge games where we can effectively put one hand on the Premiership trophy, games where we can assert our dominance, and games where in fact we could secure the league on that very day. So, when in doubt, whip a tier list out. It's as simple as that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. Before we begin, very quickly, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who wished me a happy birthday yesterday in the comments section of the videos. I would have got round to every single one of you and replied, but that would take me all day, so I'm saying it here to all of you. You guys are the best. I really do appreciate your good wishes. And today we're back in action, 25 years of age. It's time to move on. The tier list is being rolled out. That's right. What a way to get us all in the Derby fever by giving us a Derby themed tier list. I was thinking to myself today, what is the best Derby I have seen at Celtic Park over the past decade? Now, I could make this the best Derby I've seen at Celtic Park in my life. I could make it the best Derby we've seen at Celtic Park since the turn of the millennium. But I really do not fancy keeping you here till my 26th. So, we're going to look at the past decade exclusively, and we're going to figure out what was the biggest of all those Derby results. Stick around to the very end, because I did put this up on social media earlier to find out what you guys think is the best Derby of the last 10 years. Be interesting to see some of your thoughts and comments, and the virtual tier list, which you can still take part in using the link below. We'll revisit it in a few days' time to see which one is leading the way. So here we are with my handy tier list at hand, ready to rank all 16 of the Scottish Premiership derbies against Rangers at Celtic Park since 2016, when they returned to the top flight. We've got all of them from the very first back in September of 2016 till the one at the start of this season where we beat them 3-0. We're going to give a quick opinion on each of them. I'm going to give you a brief reminder of what happened at said game, and we're going to rank them from, well, the ones I want to erase from my memory to the one and only, there can only be one and only, best derby of the last 10 years. Under the park headlights. But very quickly before we begin, I just want to caveat everything by saying, don't take this too seriously. It's all for entertainment. You don't need to read into things too much, and it's just one man's opinion. Because I seen a cracking point earlier on from my good mate Oren, and it really does stand true, that I've never ever watched Celtic beat Rangers at Celtic Park, no matter if it's 5-0, 3-0, 6-1, 2-1, and thought to myself, anything other than this is class. You know, it's always a class feeling beating Rangers, no matter the score, and every derby victory feels the same. I couldn't care if Celtic were to win 1-0 with a first minute OG and the rest of the game was to be an absolute chore to watch. At the end of the day, Celtic have beat Rangers. So when you look at my tier list and you see me putting ones into mid or pretty good and rating them below others, I'm just trying to weigh up everything in that. You know, the factors outside of the game itself, the atmosphere, the occasion, what was on the line. You know, I'm trying to weigh up everything and just giving it a general rating. I reiterate, I love beating Rangers no matter the scoreline, no matter the circumstances, but we're going to try and take occasion and everything into consideration when we do this. You know, if it was a nighttime game, if it was a game that could have secured the league title, whatever, we will be thinking about them when rating them. People have ones they prefer over others, and that's fair, and that's what I'm trying to represent in this video. So without any further delay, let's start with number 1, and let's take ourselves back to September of 2016, where a certain Moussa Dembele arrived. I don't think we have to have a lengthy discussion about this one. It goes straight up to class to kick us off. I will determine the GOAT at the end, but this is a GOAT contender. This was also my first ever derby game. This was the first time I was at a Glasgow derby, whether it was in the home end, away end, Hampden Park, whatever. This was the first, and it will always be my personal favourite for that reason, because I have so many memories connected with this game. And Moussa Dembele, as his shirt still remains behind me, is one of my favourite Celtic players ever. This game has a huge part in that. It was the arrival of him, it was the arrival of Brendan Rodgers' Celtic, and remember, it was the first league derby since 2012, so we were waiting and we wanted to put them back in their place. You remember, A few months before this at Hampden with Ronnie Dylan in charge, they beat us in the Scottish Cup. A second division Rangers knocked us out the Scottish Cup, and we wanted revenge. And boy howdy did we get our revenge. 5-1, a Dembele hat-trick. Welcome back Rangers. It really set the tone for what the next decade was going to be, and that was pure Celtic domination.
Jason Holt miscued his clearance. Forrest. Armstrong! Smashed in by Stuart Armstrong!
Sadly, the following derby at Celtic Park that season didn't live up to the same standards. It finished 1-1 on the day. Rangers nicked a point, and if you remember, the big thing that happened in that game was Lee Griffiths getting denied a penalty right at the end of the game, and still to this day, Celtic were absolutely robbed of a penalty at the end of that game. It didn't make up for how poor we were. We should have been beating that Rangers side comfortably, and we showed that earlier in the season, but yeah, the SFA doing their usual, I suppose. 1-1 it finished. Clint Hill, yeah, it was poor. It was a poor Celtic performance in the day. Considering the standards we set in an invincible season, we really should have walked over Rangers again that day, but they really wanted some pride. They didn't get much of it that season, and obviously we went on to win an invincible treble, so it wasn't that bad.
Tavernier advancing brilliantly here. And Morelos and Craig Gordon got a touch.
I don't even need to say erase this from my memory, because it has been erased from my memory. If you try and ask me anything about this 0-0 game, I can tell you bugger all. Apart from Alfredo Morelos used to love missing against Celtic. Remember that. It took him yonks to find that first goal, and it was a great laugh. And that included this game where he could have scored a couple. Yeah, I don't need to ask for it to be erased from my memory. It has been. It's such a forgettable game, a terrible derby. And yeah, real disappointment when you consider once again the quality of this Celtic side and what we were doing, you know, week in, week out. This was in a double treble winning season, but this game just fell flat. Not much to remember from a Celtic point of view, apart from haha Morelos. That all changed with this game. That all changed with this game here, which once again goes flying up here. I mean, you beat your rivals 5-0 in your home ground to win a league title. How much better can it get? It's a real toss-up between these two right now for what takes top spot, but I think for taking my personal preference aside for a minute, it probably has to be 5-0, doesn't it? We beat them 5-0 to win the league. I mean, we might never see that again. I know we've been getting used to scalping Rangers over these last few years since they returned to the top flight, but this was quite literally to win the title. Mikael Lustig was running about with a police hat on. That was one of the best days of my life. Easily one of the best days of my life. It was a great way to kind of wrap up that season. Once again, a double treble winning season. We were getting towards the end of it a wee bit. What a day. What a day. And I think this is the thing that will annoy people about this day, and it still annoys me to this day as I speak and make this video. It shouldn't have stopped at 5. It should never have stopped at 5. And for that reason, it actually makes me a bit annoyed thinking about this game, because we took our foot off the gas when we hit 5-0. We could have beat them. I think we could have hit 10 that day. And I'm not even joking. If we kept going the way we were going, we could have hit 10. And that's no exaggeration. If you're too young to remember it, which terrifies me, if you're too young to remember it, honestly, you have to be there. You had to have watched it to understand. Celtic could have set records. They could have beat the 7-1 of 1957. And they probably should have. And that's the only problem I have with this day. But a historic day in Celtic's recent memory. The goals were crackers as well. Odsonne Edouard coming onto the scene. Mikael Lustig with a police hat. Just, God, what a day. What a day. This was the first derby of the 2018-19 campaign. We didn't quite know at the time that Brendan Rodgers was maybe thinking of leaving Celtic. And this game wasn't exactly great, but the Encham goal, sent us into an absolute frenzy, didn't it, on the day? It was huge. Encham, what a player he could be on his day. You know what? My memories from this game were just pure delight. As I said at the start of this video, even if it was a bit of a dire watch at times, you're leaving beating Rangers, you don't really care the manner of how you've done it. But I'll put it into mid. Just a 1-0, getting the job done. Probably expected a little bit more as well. It kind of left the question as to whether or not Rangers were maybe getting a bit closer to us because it wasn't a high scorer, but we all knew the truth deep down. Because I remember this was the first one under Gerrard, wasn't it? And there was the whole narrative that we've had still to this day that the new manager was in and that Rangers were back. So there was the media out there to paint the picture that, they're getting closer to Celtic, they're getting closer. It was only 1-0, they didn't get beat 5-0, didn't get beat 5-1. But they still lost. And that's been the story for the majority of the last 10 years. So long may it continue. The next one was similar in the sense that it was a 1-goal victory. Gerrard was in charge. Rangers still insisting they're getting closer. But we won because we were just simply better. And this one I would put into pretty good because it felt good that we won it really late on. James Forrest in the 86th minute, if you remember, it was pandemonium. So even, on the surface, it doesn't feel like it was a classic of a game. But when you beat them late, it makes it just that wee bit sweeter, doesn't it? Wasn't a classic by any stretch, this game of football, but it was a real great feeling because this was the first time we'd beat them late since they returned to the league, wasn't it? At least at Celtic Park, anyway. It was the first time that we'd won in this kind of fashion, scoring a near 90th minute winner. So to get that feeling back that we hadn't felt since 2000. Prior to 2011, it was nuts to feel that again. And James Forrest, of all people, the lifetime Celt who got the goal. This was the game it all started kicking off after full time, and all the Rangers fans were getting hard about Andy Halliday squaring up to Scott Brown. Scott Bain was in goals this day, in fact. There's something that you might not remember about that game. But I love it when it all spills over at the end. I love that ferocity. I love that atmosphere. And of course it was the first without Brendan Rodgers, which is a huge part of this game. Brendan Rodgers was gone and Neil Lennon was in charge, so he had a big kind of addition for the role here when he was managing this game, an addition which he sadly passed. Aye, let's just try and get through these next few, shall we? I know you want me to get it over and done with quick, these ones, and I think we know exactly where they're going, so let's not waste too much time. Yeah, this was the first Rangers win at Parkhead in a long time. A long time. Gerrard had beaten Neil Lennon. And of course, they got that big win the season prior against Rodgers at Ibrox. It was the win that they were waiting for to kind of just get a win in general. But this was the first one at Parkhead. It was a real shock to the system for Celtic fans because up until this point, we'd never seen that happen. We were terrible on the day. But what I will say is, remember the end of the game. Remember Gerrard celebrating in front of the cameras and the Rangers team going around the stadium as if they'd won the league. Hilarious to look back on. And I know that they got their reward the season after that by winning the league title, and it all seems a bit irrelevant now, but it was an example of how not to do it, because not too long after this, Celtic once again went out to do what they do, romped the league, won it, and Rangers were left with egg in their face after celebrating at Parkhead like they won a league title. Aye, Lenny. Talking about Lenny, we're into the COVID season. Let's just get the two of these done and out the way. These are the worst. And I include a draw in that. I'm going to put the draw just above losing to Gerrard at Celtic Park, because a draw is better than losing to them. But it felt just as bad because that draw done nothing for us. And even if we won that day, it would have done nothing for us. We were so far out of it, it was terrible. And this one here, let's just... Don't even start me. Don't even start me. It was the COVID season. It didn't even really happen. It didn't happen. It doesn't count. It does not count. But I regret ever bringing it up now when I think about it. Well. Back to reality it was in the February of 2022 with what some people consider the best derby in recent memory at Celtic Park. It was Ange Postecoglou's first at Celtic Park, and what a night it was. It was the first time that Celtic had played a midweek fixture in the derby anywhere, whether it be Ibrox, Celtic Park, Hampden, in a long time, since 2012 actually. And what an atmosphere it was. You could tell that everybody had been enjoying a few libations through the day. What a night. What a night. And it's up there as the contender for the winner. We don't know who I'm going to crown as winner yet, but this game meant so much more than just beating Rangers. And it was only a few years ago, so you don't need me to paint the whole picture. But it was the pendulum swing. It was the game that sent Celtic on to reclaiming their league title. The league title that they lost. I hate using the word lost, but they lost in a COVID season. It was the game that changed the direction of both clubs to the point we're sitting here right now. It was I can't describe it anything else other than the pendulum swing. That's what it was. Rangers, who looked like they would go on to win that league. Celtic, who were battling injury, battling poor bits of form, under a new manager with a whole new team. This was a new look team, taking on Rangers in a Parkhead derby for the first time, and we done that to them. We destroyed them. We beat them 3-0, and what a historic night it was. What a party atmosphere it was at Celtic Park. I love the nighttime fixtures. In fact, I would campaign for them to happen all the more regular. It was just a brilliant night, an absolutely fantastic night, and God bless Big Ange for the happy memories that he left us in that derby game. The next one, despite the scoreline, has a lot more significance than people remember. And I know it was a boring game. It was a game that we can all kind of forget very easily, and rightfully so. But a lot of people tend to forget that Rangers weren't that far off us in terms of points. Not as far off as they have been basically every other year come this stage of the season. You know, this weekend we go into a game where we're 16 points clear. There's no jeopardy in the game. But this one, you know, Celtic were only 6 clear going into it. So if Rangers won this game, it could have opened up a real threat heading into the last couple of games of the season. We had to stay professional. We had to make sure we got the job done. And a draw was enough. A draw was enough, because it was very unlikely that Celtic were going to drop 6 points in the last 4 games or whatever it was. It was a poor game of football, though. It was... Do you know what? I'm actually going to put it in here just because of the significance of the final whistle going. People will rewrite this and people won't remember it. Some of you will, but some of you won't. When that full-time whistle went, the relief of knowing that's it, we've basically won the league. Some people were scared to admit it, scared to say it out loud, but there was the relief of knowing we've done it. We have won this league title. You thought about it in that moment. You thought about the 3-0 against them in the February. You thought about the other huge points that we gained in other places around the country. Dingwall in the 97th minute. You thought about all of that in that moment when the full-time whistle went. So, despite it being a draw, it wasn't as bad a draw as what you may remember, because there was a lot on the line that night, or that afternoon I should say. This one's a classic, isn't it? And the photo alone makes it a classic. That celebration, it's one of the modern great images of Celtic Football Club. Jota with his fist raised in the air, 4-0. And this comes off the back of Rangers making a Europa League final. Rangers had just went to a Europa League final the May before this game, and they thought that they were on top of the world, that there was going to be a real challenge from them in this season. In fact, a lot of them thought they were going to win the league under Gio van Bronckhorst at this point. And 4-0 is what it finished. That's right, 4-0. The Europa League Govan Globetrotters were sent right back down to earth in this moment, and it felt bloody brilliant. And especially because the quality of the goals, if you remember, Liel Abada, Jota, David Turnbull on the day, it was just a cracking atmosphere, cracking afternoon. And we went on to lose to St Mirren, if you remember this, literally a couple of weeks later when we returned from the international break, and we were like, oh, maybe not get too far ahead of ourselves. But yeah, the wheels were in motion for this Rangers cycle. You know, we were about to see the back of Gio only a month or so after this, and or a couple of months after this, and this really broke them. It really, really did break them that day. This next one is always a struggle for me to remember. Not only this next one, but the next couple, because they all kind of merge into one, because they're all like 3-2, 2-1, 2-1. I always forget exactly what happened in each game. This was pretty damn good. Even though Rangers kept it close, it was one of those games where I never really doubted Celtic were going to win, especially when Kyogo scored quite early. Granted, Rangers equalised. It was 1-1 at a point, and then Celtic were up 3-1. And the last 12 or so minutes of the game after Tavernier scored, it made it really tense. It made it really kind of nervy, but the league was won at this point, wasn't it? And it was after this game where Celtic actually kind of started taking their foot off the gas a wee bit, if you remember. It was right at the end of Ange Postecoglou's run as manager. We dropped points to Motherwell, we dropped points to Rangers, we dropped points to Hibs, we dropped points to St Mirren. This game was the dagger. It was the dagger in their back that won us another league title. And yeah, I have good memories of that day. A real frustrating derby, this one, because 2-1 was really, I don't know, it should have been 2-1. We should have won about 5-1 this day. We should have won 5-0 or something. We just weren't as ruthless as we could have been. But the Kyogo goal, none of us will forget that. None of us will forget Kyogo's goal in this game. This was the return of Brendan Rodgers to the derby. The guy who terrorised them for 2 or 3 years in the late 2010s was back, and he was back to do it again. And he really should have started off with more than a 2-1. And that goes for the derby after that, but we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, we should have scored more this day. We really should have. It was a pretty good result. Tavernier scored that free kick right at the end of the game, which left people going, oh no, surely no. But we won the game. I think a lot of people might even drop this one down to mid, but who be kidding? Who be kidding? Rodgers was back, Kyogo had scored a screamer. It was a great day. As I said, this game felt like a carbon copy. And what annoys me about this one was it had all the makings of the 5-1. We were up 1-0, we were up 2-0, Dessers had scored right before half time, it was 2-1. The way that we were playing, we could have had 4 or 5 in the first half. I was thinking, this is exactly like the 5-1 game in September 2016. We were up 2-1 at half time, we should have been up by a lot more, we conceded a terrible goal. This is going to be 5-1 again. And then the second half, game was terrible. But still beat them. And do you know what? I'm gonna drop it into here. I'm gonna drop it into here because I think the Encham game was maybe better. So that's my basis for that one, and that's that. And I really don't remember too much about this day, so I think that says a lot. Which leaves us off with the only game in this list that I wasn't present at. I was at every single one of these. I wasn't at this. Celtic 3, Rangers 0, September of 2024. Which is this season, of course, and we battered them. We brought them once again right back down to earth. Super Phil Clement was here. They were ready to go and win a league title. We heard all the same stories as before, and we went and battered them 3-0, put them in their place, and you could say, really just put our hand in the title really early. I don't mean to be ignorant or arrogant or any of those words, but we did. We just very, very early on said, nah, you lot of shite. And 3-0. Could have been more as well. Should have been more. Really should have been. I think that's what Rodgers will have the pet peeves about the Celtic Park derby so far since he returned is they could have and should have been a lot more. However, this is. Do I think it's up with these 4? Nah, but I'll put it in here. No, do you know what? I'll put it in here. 3-0. Barring them 3-0, and it could have been more. It's class. It's class. We have to determine the best out of these. We have to determine what is number 1. It's not easy. There are so many, and for so many different reasons I could pick either of these top ones. It's down to these 3. And I think most people will have this 3-0 game. This 3-0 game for so many people goes to the top because of the romance that surrounds the nighttime kickoff, the romance that surrounds Ange Postecoglou's non-stop team, the romance that surrounds the pendulum swing that was Celtic becoming top dogs again. For a lot of people, that does fly to the top. For me, it has to be this. It has to be this. And I know a lot of you will be in disagreement about that, but you beat them 5-0. 5-0. It's, do you know what? I'm tying it. I don't care. I've copped out right at the end. Who cares? We beat Rangers. We beat them 5-0. We beat them 3-0. Both of them were great nights. Get it up them. Come on. And there you go. Out of 7,000 votes, the winner of the public poll thus far is the 3-0 game. back in February of 2022, followed actually closely by the 4-0 in the season after. So the 5-0, which I think should be higher, is down at 5th when it comes to total votes right now. And that one this season is higher than it. I don't know how, but that's what you guys have got it publicly voted right now. There's still 6 days left of this poll, so make sure to go and have your say, see where things finish. But that's where it stands right now. If you enjoyed, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Let me know what your favourite derby of the past decade at Celtic Park has been. Right down there, just comment, let me know, and I'll have the link for the tier list as well at the top line of the description. So until next time, please take care of yourselves. It's been an absolute pleasure as always, and I'll see you all next time.